Paul's Hill from coaching.co.uk, and this is the third video in this mini-series where I'm showing you how to create a custom property editor package for Umbraco version 8. So in the first two episodes we got the solution set up, we got it into source control, and we got it to a point where we can actually work with it as a property editor. And now what we're going to do is implement the Giphy property editor that I created. So that is this one here. So this is actually a released package now. It's on our Umbraco, it's on NuGet, and part of this series will be showing you how to do that as well. But for this episode we're just going to implement this. So before we just had a piece of text that said my property editor, but this is what it looks like when it's actually working. So it opens up like this with the native editor service, infinite editing dialog that opens out, and it comes up with it already in the text box and everything like that. So this is what we're going to get to at the end of this episode. So when you pick that, it does that. Anyway, so let's go to our solution. Now I have changed a few things on this since the last episode, so I just want to help you catch up with that. So in order to finish the project, I needed to split it out into several files. So we've got my picker HTML, my property editor HTML, we've got directives.js because there's a fade effect that happens on the images as they load in, mypicker.controller.js, and mypropertyeditor.controller.js. And then we have an image that is powered by Giphy.png, and we've got some styles as well. So if we just have a look at this again, so this bit here is the property editor view. This bit here is the picker HTML. Here's that image powered by Giphy, because anywhere that uses the Giphy API you have to say it's powered by Giphy. And there's a controller for this picker, there's a controller for this property editor, and the style sheet applies to both. So if we go to our package manifest, we need to make sure that we have all of the JavaScript files correctly named and referenced in here, comma separated. We need to make sure we've got the CSS reference correctly, and we've got the view for the property editor view there. We don't need to put the picker view in here because we'll define that when we launch the picker from within the property editor controller JavaScript. So we'll get to that later, but I just want you to make sure that you update your package manifest file to be the same as mine. So now that we've got the package manifest file right, and we've got all of our file names right, we can move on. Okay, so let's make a start then. So what I want to do is just show you how it works with the storing of the value for the property. So if we go into here, and we've got my property editor here. So at the moment this isn't doing anything, and it's not storing any value or anything like that. But if we put an input, type equals text, and then we do ng-model equals model.value, we can then assign a value to this. If I then do a rebuild, and the reason I'm doing a rebuild is because it's going to paste this, it's going to copy the contents of this folder and paste it into this. So that's why I always do a rebuild every time. So now if I do a hard refresh on this, it should load this up for us with an empty text box. So then what we should be able to do is put in an animated GIF URL and save that. So this is like in its most basic form. I mean, we could do anything, so I'll just write something, something in there, save and publish, and then if we reload the page using F5, I did there on the keyboard, you see that it's saved something. So just by putting model.value as the ng model there, we're now saving something to Umbraco. So that's a really simple example of it, and in fact it's not even needed to do anything with a controller. So my property editor controller is doing nothing. It's registered a controller, but it's not actually doing anything. So that's the most basic form, and then I thought, well, let's just have a look, see if we can get an image to show. So if we do img ng source, and then what if we just make this equal model.value? So we do it in these angle brackets like this, and we do build rebuild, and then let's load this in. So at the moment it's going to be a URL of something, so it's not going to work. But if we load up Giphy while we wait for that, do a search for a URL, for an image. So I like the fun. So then we can copy link and we can get the right one. So let's load this back up now. So now that this is loading, so you see the image is broken there, but if I was to paste this in, you see how the image is actually updated. So it's got the real-time binding, which is good. So it was watching the value of that. So if I edit that, but if I do .gif again, it'll work. So we're starting to make progress with this property editor, and then if I save this, save and publish now, and then refresh the page, we can see that it's got the text box and it's got the image. So then let's have a look at, what about if we make the image only show. So you use NGShow, and then you do model.value. So only show if you've got a value. Right, so if I cut that, you see the image disappears. But as soon as I start to type, something comes back. And if I paste that in, it shows there. So that's showing that with that NGShow. And then you've got an NGIf. So you can do a conditional based thing on that. So I think NGIf will just not even render the whole. So if we have a look at this, like if I do that, but inspect, the image is actually there, but it's just hidden with an ng hide. And then as we type, inspect on that, it's got NGShow on there. So anyway, it is shown, so it doesn't have the ng hide on it anymore. But if we use the NGIf, save and build that, what this will do is it just won't even render it. It'll just render it as a comment. Right, so let's go back to this. So then we go cut that, and we just inspect, and you see it's just done it as a comment, so it's not actually rendered out the element at all. It's just got it as a comment. So there were just a couple of the things that I was doing with this when I was starting out. Right, so before we go any further, let's just delete this value from here and do a save and publish. Alright, that's saved and published. So now we don't have a value in there. What I want to do is move on with this and just show you how we get to this. So first thing was first was I wanted to find how I get this markup here. So I dug into the media picker and got the markup that I needed for this to work. So I'm going to get this from the My Property Editor GitHub repo. So if you're following along, this is now public. So you can go into the so it's github.com prjc or My Property Editor. This is actually just for this tutorial. The official code is in this one over here, Giphy Property Editor. So if we go through to My Property Editor, and we're going to the App Plugins folder, and then we're going to My Property Editor HTML. We want to get this element here. So this is the bit that gives us the styled plus part. So we're going to take this out and just paste that in. So if you're following along, you can do the same. So just do a rebuild to copy that over. And then let's load this up. I'll just close that. Let's load this up again. So we're looking for this text box to change now and to look like this plus here. The styling is all taken care of by the fact that it's one of the native elements. So there we go. That's how we get it looking like this. When you hover over it, it's got the cursor pointer, but it doesn't do anything. You can't actually click. Yep. So that's getting it to look like that bit. So that's how that part works. So then in the same file we need this part up here, and this is for the media picker itself, for the preview part. So if we just paste this in above, try again. So we paste that in here. Remember, if you're following along, you can just copy that from the file as well. But I just wanted to add these in incrementally so you can see what effect they're having. Notice there's a ng-hide model.value, so if the property's got a value, it's going to hide the plus section, which makes sense. And then this one here is only show this if there is a value. And this has got an image inside a wrapper, and when you click on the element, when you click on the image, it will do the add. We don't have an add method yet. And if you click on an icon, which is the delete icon, it will call the remove. So let's save this, rebuild. Go over here, just do a refresh, and we shouldn't see anything different now because we've got that ngF, so I only show this if there's a value. So it's a bit of a waste of time loading this, but just wanted to show it you. So yeah, still looks exactly the same. So that's with the add, and we've got a remove. So what we need to do is go to the other controller, so to the controller file. So if we go to My Property Editor JS, My Property Editor.controller.js, So in here we have a scope.add function and a scope.remove. Simple as that. So what we can do is we can just copy this, actually copy all of it, and just to start off with, so remember we'll just go into our solution, my property editor dot controller, paste that in there. But what I want to do is just delete that part for now, and I just want to do scope.model.value equals, and then copy this. So when you click on add, it will set the value to be the Giphy, and when you, oh, I need to put that in single quotes. So when you click on the add, anything with the add function, it will set the value to that, and anything with the remove, it will take it off. So let's do a rebuild. Click on add, and you can see that it's set that, and now we can see what the preview looks like, and also we can see that there is styling for the delete to show, and then if we click on the delete, it removes it. So we've got that functionality and that styling, and we haven't had to do anything really to get that. All we had to do was add the markup that you get on the other elements from Umbraco property editors. So that's how I've got to that point. And next what we really want to do is to launch the picker. So if we go back to that file where we've got this code, and we'll take it all this time, and then we'll put it all into here, so replace what's there now and save, and then we'll just break this down. So we have an API key, I'll come into that later. We've got a title, so inside the add we are creating a GiffyPicker object, and then we're using the editor service to open that. So this GiffyPicker is basically a set of options. So what we're passing in is a API key, a title, a view, a size, and we're giving it a couple of functions as well. So the functions it's going to have is a submit and a close. And notice both of these call editor service.close. And in this you'll see that the model that gets passed in is basically going to be the result back from the clicked on image, and it's going to take that result, get the images from the result and the original URL. So we can have a look at that later, but this is it copied and pasted in. And look at the view here, so app plugins, my property editor, my picker HTML. So this is saying these options, when you click on, when you launch editor service.open, it knows exactly what view to use, what title to put in the sidebar. So that's the title there. This is that view. It's using the small size window. You can use the bigger one as well. I think if you don't specify, then it will go a lot further over. We can test that out. So let's have a go. We're just leaving it like that and just doing a rebuild. If we click on this, we've got the editor service window opening for us. So that's good, that's a start, but we can't close it. So what we need on this is we could do with the header part here with the title. and we could do with a close button down here. So let's go into the source code for this tutorial, and we'll go into my picker, and first of all we'll take, I don't want to take it all in one go because it's sort of cheating. I want us to understand it along the way. What we'll do is we'll take the inside of it. You can take the whole file actually if you want. It might be easier if you click on raw and then Control A and copy that. And we'll go to solution my picker HTML. So let's just paste that in, but then let's just delete some things. So we'll delete editor container, and we will leave footer on. So we'll take that image out. So what we are putting in here is a header which will have the title, and we've got the footer as well. So it's just saying that you put this content using the editor footer content right element, put this button in there, and the action this button's got is close, and the style of the button is a link, and the shortcut to do this is the escape key and things like that. So this is what we're going to do for now. So if I rebuild and copy this over, right, so we click on this. Oh, I didn't. Did that work? Did I do a rebuild? I did do a rebuild. So that's not worked. I wonder why that didn't work. I wonder, are there any errors in the console? No. Okay. Strange. Let's just put everything back in. So this is from the full copy and paste. Give that a rebuild. Not sure why it didn't all come in. It didn't work, but we'll give it a whirl with all of it coming across. Right, so it's clearly not happy with something. So what we might need to do is sort out the picker controller now. Yeah, maybe that's probably what the problem is here. So we're going to put that picker controller code in there as well. And the picker controller code is quite straightforward. So if we go back to the GitHub repository, JavaScript, my picker controller, and then we'll just copy and paste that, and then put that in there. So we'll take out the search for now. We don't need it to do a search for us. And we'll give that a rebuild and just see if that works. Click on that. Now we have it. So it obviously needed the controller part as well for this. So let's just have a look at what we've been given in that controller part. So if I just close this, so we've got this simple picker controller. So it's got a timeout, and what this is doing is that when you open it, so we now can close, and we can open, close and open. And this set timeout here was from GitHub. Got this contributed, so that was really nice. So if I look at closed pull requests, so it was Anders Bjerner. He's from Skybrid. He committed this for me as a pull request, so I was really grateful of that. So now I'm able to share that with you as well. So that was just this little bit here. So it looks for the input called Giphy search, and it sets the focus on that. So that's how that part works there. Then what else do we have? We've got a submit method and we've got a close method. So the submit method just calls the other submit on, so it basically gets the result and it passes it back to the main controller for the property editor, so it will pass it back to this. And then this one here, the close. So I've got to thank my friend Matthew Wise for helping me with this. So he helped me work out how to get this infinite editor to work properly and pass it back. So this is the bit that I was missing, so I was really grateful for him for doing that for me. So we have that there, and then the main part of this is the actual searching bit. So let's just go back to the code and just take this search function and then put that in down here. So what this is doing then is when the search function is called, it adds this loading equals true, so we'll come back to that one. But basically it calls a method, an API method, which is of the api.giphy.com, and it's the search API. You have to input your API key, which is what we passed in from here, and I'll show you how you get that set up. And the query is the value from model.search. So if we go into my picker HTML, we have an input which is the type of text. It's got the ID of Giphy search, which relates to the picker controller up here. That's how the input is set, and it's got an ng model of model.search, and there's a function on here, so say ng change. So when this text changes, call the search method. But what I've also got on here is ng model options, and that says debounce 500. So basically what it'll do is it will check to see that you're not still typing within half a second of the last keystroke. So if you've not typed for half a second, then it will fire the function. So that's a key one there, and that's one of the advantages of using a more up-to-date, well, I say up-to-date, but more up-to-date version of AngularJS compared to what we had in version 7 of Umbraco. So you get to use debounce like that rather than a long-winded way of using it before. So that's that, and then we've got this loading indicator, which is pretty good. So what we could actually do is just leave that on. So if I just take that off, no, I'll just, yeah, I'll take that off, save it. I'll leave the results, and then we'll just go to this picker controller. Actually, so if what this is saying, I'll put that back on. If model.loading, so basically if it's true, then this will be shown. So we can just take off this. So we won't do the API call yet. All we're going to do is, when it detects a change in the input of the search field, it will trigger the search function, and what that will do is just set the loading to be true. So that's what we'll get it to do next. And then afterwards we'll look at this results thing. So let's do a rebuild. And then we can refresh this. Anyway, so we click on this, and if we start to type, notice that the loading icon has come on. So that was suggested by somebody on Twitter, which was a really good suggestion. So I quite like that little addition. So again, that's using the inbuilt features from Umbraco V8. So yeah, we've got that loading icon showing now. Let's go back into here. So then if we go back to the picker controller, the last thing to do really is to put the actual search method on. So again, don't forget you can copy this, all of this from the repo, and you can paste this in. So what, as I was saying before, it does a get method to that API, and then when it gets the response back, it checks that it's not null or undefined, and it loads it into a value on the model called results, and it puts that response.data.data into that value. And then if we go into my picker, we've got this div class results here, and it's got an ngIf of if it's not loading. So if we go back to here, we set loading is true at the very beginning when search is called, and then inside the then, so when it's finished, we set loading equals false, so then that hides that. And also with this results div, when it is loading, the results div won't show, and when it's not loading, the results will show. So we have an image, and there's an ng repeat on this, so it will keep creating images for every result in model.results. And let's remember, model.results comes from here, so this got set with the results. And it also sets the source of the image, so similar to what we did before, but it actually says for each of these result records in model.results, set the source for this individual one, and it grabs a particular value. So what we can do is we can log this out. So in model.controller we can do console.log, and then we can do response.data.data, so we can see what actually is going into that. For any of this to work though, we do need to get it set up. So we need to go to Giphy again, and we need to log in, and we need to get our API key. So if we go to developers.giphy.com, and we'll get our API key. So you go onto this, you sign up, and you've just got a really simple form. So it just looks like this. You create a new app, you just give it a name and a description, and then you are given an API key. So when you go on to developers.giphy.com and you log in and you go to your dashboard, it's right there on the screen, you get your API key. So I'm not going to show you my API key, but that's all you have to do. Right, so what I want to show you now is the package manifest. So if you copy the package manifest, that comes from within this repo, package.manifest. You'll see that we've got a pre-values bit that is different to the last episode. So we've got this pre-values here, and this is basically like the config, and we've added a field, and the key for the field is API key, which relates to the code in here, scope.model.config, so we can consider this the config. This is the config, and then the key is API key, and then the value will be whatever we put in. So it's a type of text string, so in the back office we will enter the API key, or the people using this as a data type will enter the API key. So that's how you use this package. You have to go on the developers.giphy.com and get an API key. But they're all free anyway. I don't think there's any rate limiting or anything like that. Go into settings, GiffyPicker, and then property editor is my property editor. And then because we've got the pre-values set in the package manifest file, we need to enter our API key in here. So I'm going to do that now. So now we got an error then because we've actually changed one of the data types, which I think has an impact on models builder. So what we just need to do is do a rebuild, and then we can reload the home page. Right, okay, and then if we click on this, we've got the type to search, hello. It showed the loading icon, and then it's shown some results. And it will actually, if you click on it, it will work because of the code that I've actually got in the repo. Or if you put in all the files and everything like that, it just works anyway. So let's have a look at the console, because we did log this out to the console. So you can see that it's returned 25 GIFs, and if you look into one of these GIFs, you can see that it's got an images property, and then we've got fixed height small, and then URL. So this is the property that I'm using on this, so I like to have it as the small one on the preview itself, you know, when you do it in here. So that's what image size I'm using there, I think it is. So if we go back to my property editor and then my picker, so I'm using the result.images.fixedheightsmall.url, and when we click on submit, so when we click on the image, you know how when we pick this, on click of that is what's firing this submit. It's the submit from the picker controller, and that submit method there, it grabs whatever the result was, so that is the actual image object. So if we go back to it's actually this object as a whole. It passes that through to the controller, which then passes that back to the property editor controller, and then here we set the value of it to be the original URL, so that'll be the big image, and that's what we can then use on the front end. So scope.model.value, which is what we were using our text box to store values against this model.value, we're setting that to now be the result from this. So from that image item in the console here, this one, so it'll be from this, it'll say images, so we go into there, images, fixed height small.url, it's that value there, that's what's getting set in there, and then we just call editor service close. So that's how it all works, and it's all wired up and it all passes back through and works fine. So what we can do now is just take off the console.log, and we've got this working property editor. So hopefully you've been able to follow along, and I think having the code there is really helpful for following this one as well, because it wouldn't be fun typing all of that out, but it is fun discovering what you can do with it, and hopefully I've explained it in a way that you can understand of what it's doing and why it's doing it and how it all works. But if you do have any questions, please comment on the video, or I'm on Twitter as @CodeSharePaul. I'm happy to answer questions on there, and if I don't know the answer, other people can chip in and help as well. But yeah, I hope you really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making it. I like to set myself these challenges. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did enjoy it and you want to say thank you, maybe you could buy me a coffee. You can go to codeshare.co.uk/coffee, and that could be a way that you could thank me if you want to buy me a coffee. It's up to you. We're not begging for coffees. Oh, before I do go, there's just some styling issues. So in the repository there is a CSS file as well. Let's not forget this one, mypropertyeditor.styles, and in here you can just copy these styles. So let's just select these and put them into my property editor. Open up the file, mypropertyeditor.styles, paste that, do a rebuild, and you see how this is all bunched together. It'll just put some nice padding on it. It will sort out the cursor so it looks like a proper cursor. It will put some shading, some drop shadow or something like that, box shadow I think it is, around the bottom and right of the image, so when you're hovering over it you can see that it's being selected. I didn't mention the Giphy image, but if we go back into here and we go into my picker, there's just an image here inside a editor footer content left. So if you do decide to use this API yourself as well, just remember you need to give attribution to Giphy for the fact that you're using their API. Alright, let's load that up. Do wow. So there we go. So it's got a bit of margin, it's got the hover effect, it's got the cursor pointer and things like that. So yeah, that really is it on this one. Next episode we will be looking at how we can take this, oh, and don't forget to commit it to source control as well on GitHub, but how we can take this and publish it as a package on our Umbraco. And as I said, that's exactly what I did with this package. So please don't release another version of this package on our Umbraco, but I'm going to show you the steps on how we create the package and get it listed in here. And if you do like the package, please install it on your Umbraco. It works in the cloud, it works on your local installs, and if you think it's a good one, please vote for it. And also if you do install it, please report compatibility as well, because that helps confidence for other people when they come to use it. Alright, thanks for watching anyway. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to watch my next video, and share the video with others, and tweet me @CodeSharePaul and things like that. So thanks for watching, bye.